Backstage Pass Radio is now a global podcast heard in 92 countries around the world. Our newly formed partnership with Sinad Outdoor has us seeing great traction in Texas and Louisiana. Since Sinad's beginnings in 1964, this family-owned and operated advertising company has become the largest independently held billboard company in Texas today. Sinad prides itself on unbeatable service and turnaround time. Let their experienced design team create the perfect advertisement to showcase your business. Contact Sinad today at 713-861-6013. And also make sure to visit their website at www.sinad.com and tell them Backstage Pass Radio sent ya.
My guest this afternoon is the guitarist delivering the riffs, solo, and firepower behind one of the most legendary rock shows on the planet. Hey everyone, it's Randy Halsey with Backstage Pass Radio. As a driving force in the Alice Cooper Band, his sound helps bring shock rock to life night after night. From world stages to iconic songs, we're talking guitars, life on the road, new solo music, and rock and roll longevity. Crank it up, and we will talk to my pal Ryan Roxie when we return.
This is Backstage Pass Radio.
Backstage Pass Radio.
A podcast by an artist for the artist. Each week we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite musicians and the music they created. From chart-topping hits to underground gems, we explore the sounds that move us and the people who make it all happen. Remember to please subscribe, rate, and leave reviews on your favorite podcast platform. So whether you're a casual listener or a die-hard music fan, tune in and discover the magic behind the melodies. Here is your host of Backstage Pass Radio, Randy Halsey.
Ryan, welcome to the show, brother. Good to see you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's actually a pleasure to be on your show and to see all those beautiful guitars behind you.
Thanks. I figured of all people, you might appreciate those, right?
I sure do, man. I'm trying to pick out which ones that I would like first take on stage. And we are doing actually a couple of new ballads in the Alice Cooper show. So acoustics are always really, really appreciated. And I love a good acoustic.
Well, I've kind of switched to the SJ 200 right there for my live performances. That's kind of the working guitar before it was kind of the Taylor 814C, which is kind of Taylor's flagship guitar. But I love the sound. That SJ sounds like a cannon on stage. Sounds amazing.
I've never been a cutaway guy, and I see you have a few of them back there. I like them just looking traditional and stuff, but I do understand the functionality of having a cutaway. But I'm actually learning, as a guitar player, I've been playing guitar pretty much my whole life, but it's cool that you're still learning things, because just this last year I've undertaken the right hand and doing a little bit more finger picking style and learning from some great people up on, I'm going down the YouTube rabbit hole, just like probably many of you other guitar players out there that go down that YouTube black hole, and then you just start learning from this teacher and that teacher. So I'm learning way more about my right hand, and it helps because I know pretty much the left hand, and been using a pick for so many years that I thought I'd go back to working the fingers, and it gives a whole new world, a whole new flavors to songs.
Well, I think you would agree with two sentiments here. Number one, they say the magic is in the right hand for a guitarist, right? And I think you would probably, to a degree, agree with that. I mean, there's magic in the left hand too, don't get me wrong, but they say you can do some magical things with that right hand, just with different picking styles, Travis picking,
Absolutely.
Whatever, right? Yeah. So, and then, I was going to say the other sentiment that you might agree with me on is, if you're anything like me, I'll go down these rabbit holes on YouTube, and certainly you learn things and it kind of inspires you, but it pisses you off all at the same time, because some of these players are so good, man. It's like, how did you get that good at that young of an age, right?
Yeah, well, because, technology, they took full advantage of technology. If you and I would have had the same technology, we would have been using it and probably saved a lot of vinyl records from their demise back in the day. But, learning Eruption, learning Edward Van Halen's Eruption, with a tool that lets you slow it down to 75% and then tuning exactly the way you want it. and then repeat and just loop little parts is a lot less, a lot less difficult than what we had to do to learn Eruption with a vinyl record and a really bad record player.
100%. And then even if you fast forward that a little bit to when the CD player came out, I mean, how many times did we, or even a cassette tape, fast forward, rewind, play, fast forward, rewind, play. We did that 9,000 times just to hear the song over and over and over again to try to ingrain every little detail into the brain, right?
I remember the first time cassette tape decks came out with a pitch control where you could actually slow it down. And I was like, wow, that's a whole new world. I loved it.
How about that? Well, so we've been chatting for a couple of weeks off and on, I guess it's good for you to be back on home soil, right? You're back on home soil for a little bit, right?
It's always feels great to come back to the U.S. and especially for a good reason. And the reason is for starting not one, but 2 Alice Cooper shows this year for 26. There's the Alice's Attic show, which we're really happy about because that's our touring show all across the U.S. and Europe. And it's a brand new set and brand new set pieces. But still, the iconic Alice and the Alice Cooper sound. And then there's something that's also happening throughout the year that we're going to pepper shows in, combining forces with illusionist Chris Angel.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so it's the first time that I know of where illusions and rock and roll, like a real rock and roll show and like a real hardcore illusions are going to be combined together. So, it's not just going to be Alice getting his head cut off every night. It's going to be people getting sawed in half, people flying through the air, people disappearing. So all through the context of a great Alice Cooper song. So we're really looking forward to that. That's going to be sort of a residency thing that's happening in Vegas throughout the year.
That's super cool. And I mean, I think it all goes kind of hand in hand, Ryan. I mean, you would kind of expect that. I think it fits, right? Now that I think about it, the whole illusionist, Chris Angel persona and at what Alice has had going on for many years now, I think it just works. I think it will work, right? So,
well, if you think about it, Alice Cooper, AC, Chris Angel, CA, right? AC, CA, AC, CA. And a lot of people come up and they say, I've never seen that done before. And, maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe it'll be a reason that I find out in the next month why it hasn't been done before, but we're going to sure as hell give it a try.
That's right.
It's going to be cool.
Well, I think you call, and you correct me where I'm wrong on any of my facts, but do you call Cape Town home these days or South Africa in general?
Yeah.
Okay.
Currently residing in Cape Town, South Africa. Amazing country, amazing people. And actually amazing weather because I'm always chasing the sun. Yeah. When Alice Cooper tours, it's during usually the summer months and the spring and summer months here in the States and Northern Europe and anywhere above the equator. Then when the tour ends, I go south of the equator where it's summer again. Sure. So the seasons are actually opposite. So luckily for me, got the eternal suntan.
Yeah, how about that? Well, I've had quite a few, American artists on my show, and like one that comes to mind, Tony Carey, right, who played in Rainbow for a while. He lives in Germany now, and I see more and more of American artists moving to Europe or to the UK. What took you? Did South Africa find you, or did you find it? Like that, it seems like of all the places that you could live, that South Africa never pops up in conversations too much, right? Can you talk?
Well, yeah, I'd never been there, and until I actually moved there or met my wife who lived there. She wasn't living there at the time. We met after I was divorced from my first marriage, and I have 2 kids that we raised and were living in Stockholm, Sweden. So that's like way the North Pole. So I went from the North Pole to the South Pole. But the kids are going to college now and out of college. My son just, actually relocated to Los Angeles. So with all these moving parts, everybody moving in different areas, it seemed like a time for us to go back to where her family is, my second wife, Bianca, and she's down in Cape Town holding down the fort.
Okay.
And she's able to come out on the road with us, but for us, it was the right decision. And I feel that, if you can and you can afford and you have the opportunity, travel and see as many different countries as you can, because you'll find that it's so similar to you think it's so much different, but there's so many similarities. And so it'll either inspire you to stay where you are because you know that it's all the same everywhere, or it'll actually inspire you to, go and relocate someplace else for a while, because it's not as scary as people talk about.
Of course. And I guess since you have, or Bianca has family there, there's really nothing in the crystal ball to ever come back to the States at this point for you, right?
Well, I mean, that being said, I love America, born and bred. I wear my red, white, and blue wristband every single night for a reason. I love the audiences. I love the people. I love all the different types of people throughout the U.S., the different accents, the different mannerisms. But at the end of the day, just like other countries, as Americans, I feel, in a very macro version, we are very similar.
Sure. Sure.
So and I love coming back every year to play. And now that I have, my son living in the States, there's always a reason to come back to the States.
Of course. Well, let's jump in the time machine for just a second. And I want to go back a few years to San Mateo, California, right? Talk to me a bit about young Ryan Roxie growing up in Northern California. Do you come from a musical family at all? Parents musical? Well,
I mean, musical in the sense of band, like marching band and stuff. Like my dad played the trumpet, my mom played the marching snare drum. So I actually was in the marching band as well. One of my first gigs was marching timpani. And I grew up a little bit west of San Mateo, but east of San Francisco. So I grew up in the East Bay. When you grow up where I grew up, you're an Oakland Raider fan. That's basically the best way to describe it. And so I would basically be surrounded by amazing music on the radio stations from Northern California. That's really where my influence of music came from, with all different styles, and it was AM radio. It wasn't FM. It was before the explosion of FM radio. It was, before talk radio and AM were just synonymous. It was like when they actually played music, and there'd be all these bands that they would play back to back, whether it was the Commodores next to Aerosmith, or it was AC/DC next to ABBA. There would be a great mix of pop and rock and actually blues and soul as well. So I got a really good upbringing in Northern California, which probably has influenced my music history more than anything else.
A lot of great bands came out of the San Francisco Bay Area, right?
Absolutely.
We could do a whole podcast on that by itself, right?
Just from the heaviest to the poppiest, like per capita, it was like so many different great genres of bands. You can talk about the Grateful Dead, but you can also talk about Metallica. Sure. But then you can also talk about the Greg Ken band, or you can also talk about new wave bands that came out. Journey, of course,
Yeah. And, it's interesting. I spent many, many years in professional hockey as an official, and I spent time with the San Jose Sharks up in Northern California in the Silicon Valley. And it was always interesting. I love San Francisco, and I always thought it was really interesting how it could be 65 degrees in the city, and you go across the Bay Bridge into Oakland, and it's 100 degrees over there, right? In just like 2 miles, totally different climate. Isn't that crazy?
That's the amazing part about being in the Bay Area. Everyone thinks, San Francisco, nice and warm. It's cold as hell, man. But then when you get onto the East Bay, where I grew up, Pleasanton, Livermore area, it's basically the valley. So we're in the bottom of the valley, and it gets quite hot. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But I grew up a suburban kid, pretty much, in the suburbs, and just pretty much a normal middle class lifestyle. And so the things that were inspiring to me were the posters on my wall, and every day playing guitar in the mirror, being a poser, if you will. But at least now, after all those years of posing in front of a mirror, I guess you'd call me a professional poser.
Well, I think we won't talk about our age, but I think you and I are exactly the same age. And I did all the same things you did growing up. Like, you didn't do anything that was anomalous, right? Like, we all did that, right?
No, we wanted to be those icons and idols that we listened to on the radio, or we had the album and we'd take out the album, open up the gatefold, read along with the lyrics when we'd play for a record. But then we'd also go to baseball practice. We'd be in the little league, and we'd do a lot of the same things that all of America does.
Of course. Well, how did you find the guitar, and at what age did you find the guitar?
I found the guitar lying on the couch. My parents were really smart in the fact that they had it more as sort of an aesthetic vibe. It was just I don't know what brand it was. It wasn't really a name brand or anything, but it was just on the couch, always laying there. So it was always there for me an opportunity to strum at the age of 5. So I was introduced to the guitar at 5 years old. I think I kind of started to take it seriously and say, this is what I want to do, probably around 11. And that does seem young, but at the same time, I feel there's never an age where you have to learn it in order to continue and be good at it or have it as a career. You can pick up the guitar at any age that you want, and you can make rapid progress in a very short amount of time if you're driven to do it. And I would say from the year of me being 11 to the time I was 16, I really said, okay, I'm going to really take this under my wheelhouse, and I'm going to try and be the best guitar player I can be. And luckily, I've been inspired to keep learning ever since.
Well, I think the interesting thing that you said there is that, 11 was young. And you look out on YouTube, we talked a little bit about YouTube, and there's kids that are 5, 6, 7 years old that are playing stuff that I still at my age can't even come close to playing. And I think a lot of it has to do with two things. Number one, there's so much elasticity in a young kid's brain that they're like a sponge. When there's some truth to that old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Not that I'm an old dog, but the brain stops absorbing those types of things, I think, or does it at a slower rate. But now you've got all of the tools. You've got tablature. Like, what was tablature when you and I were 14, 15? It didn't exist, right? That I know of.
And I still don't know how to use it, to be honest with you. I still don't know how to read it. Every once in a while, it just takes more time for me to learn something. If I really want to get into an intricate part of a riff or a song, then maybe I can look at it just for a bar or two of music.
Sure.
But to be honest with you, the thing that's always been my saving grace, and I give this sort of advice to anybody that wants to do this for a living or even make it easier on themselves to learn, practice your ear training. Hear a note and then hum it, and then play it on the guitar and match it.
Sure. And
then know the names of just 7 notes that you have to memorize with their sharps and flats. It's 12 total. Anybody can remember 12 tones, I'm not going to get into crazy, other types of music, but in Western music, there is only 12 tones. Yeah. So if you can just memorize those 12 tones and have them in your head, you can pretty much almost visualize a song as you're hearing it as to what chords they are.
Of course.
You'll know, because us guitar players and us rock and rollers, we love the key of A.
Yeah.
We love the key of E.
Yes, we do.
We love playing a big open G and a D chord. So it's probably one of those big 4 chords somewhere in the song. So
they call them the cowboy chords, right? Like everybody's going to play them at some point in time.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, if you didn't play the guitar, have you ever thought much about what else would I play? I mean, you look at my studio. Well, you can't see it, of course, but pianos, drums, we've got all these things. Right? Like what would Ryan Roxie gravitate to if the guitar went away today? What would the instrument of choice be for you?
I did play drums along with playing guitar, and they were kind of hand in hand for a while. My mom was a very cool mom, and she bought an actual drum kit, not not an electronic drum kit. It was way before the times of having electronic kits in the house. So she let me have an honest to goodness acoustic drum kit in the living room that I would practice, and it would be so loud everywhere. But, I'd bang on those drums and get my aggressions out. And I still like playing the drums from time to time. It's just one of those things. It really is a physically demanding instrument to do. And, again, I was looking a little bit more to be more in front of the stage and actually come a little bit and a bit later to the gigs. You got as a drummer, you have to come, you have to arrive first, you have to leave last, and you probably have to own a van.
Yeah.
So those three things weren't in my top priorities, because I wanted to I want the thing that I can take to anywhere. You can take a guitar anywhere and become, an instant sort of entertainment. Just add water or just add alcohol and you got yourself a party.
I totally get it. And right now I've been playing in a duo for a long time, Ryan. And it's funny. I still complain and bitch about, breaking down and loading out at the end of the night. And I'm really just, it's a mic stand, it's a guitar, it's a little foot pedal, in the grand scheme of all things, there's nothing there. And then I start thinking, man, if I was a drummer, think how long it would take to tear all of that hardware down, especially on an acoustic kit that there's just 9,000 pieces of stuff, right? And it's like not
every single gig.
Yeah. Well, if we stay in that time machine for just a minute and we jump to, I think 1996, you joined the founding father of shock rock, Alice Cooper. Talk to me about how you connected in with the Alice Cooper camp there.
Yeah, everything is a connection from something previous, I say. Okay. So, which means if you're playing in a band now, it's probably best to remain friends and close to the band members that you're playing with, whatever current situation you're in, because there's going to be some connection from that leads you to the next project or the next band. And what had happened with Alice Cooper is that I was playing with Gilby Clarke, who is a solo artist. He was playing with Guns N' Roses, but he had become a solo artist, and I toured with him all around the U.S., and then we went to Europe, and then we went down to South America, and then we, first time for touring on a large level was with Gilby, and I always give him a lot of accolades and thanks for taking me on those tours. Alice had heard about it. He liked the idea of maybe having Gilby and Roxie be the guitar players for Alice Cooper at one point. As it turns out, Gilby was still committed to his solo stuff with his record company. So he gave me the gold light, the green light to go and get the gig, basically. He said, go get that gig, because this could be the next level, the next step in your journey for yourself. So go do it. And I appreciate that support that him and the people around me in that band gave. So I went down to the audition, and it was one of those magical days where everything kind of just fell into place. I played the right chords to the pre-chorus of Poison. And I say a lot of times that might have been the song that got me the gig, because I didn't miss a chord on that audition. Wow. I still miss the chords today every once in a while. It's a hard pre-chorus. It's a Desmond Child, Alice Cooper collaboration. But, to this day, I'm probably the one guitarist that has played the song Poison more than any other guitarist in the world. So if there's a Guinness Book of World Records for playing the song Poison, I just might.
I love that song too, man. I'm not going. You brought it up, and I'm like, yeah, that's one of my favorites. I mean, you can't ever go wrong with that song. I love it. What a great hook, great lyrics, everything about it's a cool song.
Well, you got to think, every single time that we play an Alice Cooper concert, there's like 3 or 4 signature guitar riffs that start a song. The minute you hear that guitar riff song, whether it's No More Mr. Nice Guy, School's Out, Poison, they're iconic. And that's why we give a lot of credit to the previous bands that have been around in the Alice Cooper band, because Alice has put together so many incredible musicians over the year in different groups. And all we do with this lineup is try to make the best versions and the best and play those songs live with the same spirit that they were recorded in. And I think we've been doing a pretty good job of it, because this current lineup that we have has been together longer than actually the original Alice Cooper band. So we're doing something right, because it's cohesive and people seem to be digging it. And I think we're sort of supporting the legacy and giving the Alice Cooper's legacy some well-deserved exposure.
That's super cool, man. And I mean, I was thinking back to Gilby a little bit. That's a lot of friends will, pass some things on to their friends that don't mean a whole lot. But what he gave up to you was a pretty damn big, an offering, right, to play with Alice Cooper. And then you, of course, had to go out and earn it. But he gave me the support, and he gave me the support, and he gave me the encouragement. But ultimately, the opportunity was there from Alice, and I was able to, again, have just one of those days. And there's something to be said about the preparation that you put into it, whether it's years or whether it's however much you practice for a gig. Be prepared. Yeah. Don't over prepare for it, but all that experience that I have, all those playing in front of 5 people in an empty bar, touring across the U.S. in a van with a U-Haul on the back, all those, lows, highs of being in a club band helped me prepare for the audition with Alice that day. And then going from then on, it's been, one sort of steady climb up. And now I'm happy to, again, happy and grateful to still be able to tour on this level with a guy who's a household name like Alice. 100%. Well, I guess let me jog my memory a little bit. Gilby replaced Izzy in Guns N' Roses. Is my memory serving me correctly?
Yep, that's exactly right. And a lot of people don't realize that it was when Gilby joined the band that they started consistently playing big arenas and stadiums. They weren't playing like huge stadium gigs before, but when Gilby joined, they went up to that. They leveled up to that level, and they never really went back after that. So, which is cool. With Alice, we started on a tour with the Scorpions in '96. It was a shed tour. We've been able to play everything in between. It's always been a good gig, but we can play anywhere from 3,000 to 30,000 on any given night, on any given week. And that's what I love about the appeal of the Alice Cooper band, because you can see it in a theater and you can get even more out of it in a theater than you would at an arena.
Yes.
Or you can see it in an arena and you can scale it, is what I'm saying. The Alice Cooper show is definitely scalable, and we've been able to play a huge spectrum of different size gigs, because a band like Metallica, they only play stadiums, and that's amazing for them, obviously.
Yeah.
But we actually have the sort of, I don't know if it's a luxury, but it's sort of a cool thing that where we do play theaters still.
Yes.
And that those theater gigs can be really, really important, because you're close to the audience and you can get immediate feedback. It's not just one type of venue. So again, the experiences, the whole musical experience that I get out of playing in this band is something that very few musicians get, because of the just different spectrum of venues we play.
100%. And it was a couple of years ago, I had Nibs Carter, the bass player for Saxon, on my show.
Cool.
And I was asking Nibs, I'm like, do you ever get nervous playing these 150,000 people, monster shows? He's like, I don't know. I can't see past the first 3 rows, right? I mean, how can you get nervous? And it kind of goes back to what you said, when you play places like the Arcada in St. Charles, Illinois, these cool theaters, right? It's big, where you could get people in there, but it's still intimate enough where you feel a connection with the fans. And I think you would probably agree to that, right?
Absolutely.
Well, with Gilby, you had a stint with Slash's Snake Pit, right? You and Gilby together. Is that correct?
No, not together. That's the crazy thing.
So different times.
It was different times, but we both ended up playing in Slash's Snake Pit. Gilby played on the It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere album, and I played on the Ain't Life Grand album. Right. So it's two different lineups, same guitar player, Slash, obviously, absolutely. But I feel that the album that I worked on with him, and we wrote songs together with the whole band, that lineup was something special, and Slash's guitar playing was really special too. It's one of those albums that kind of flies a little bit below the radar, Ain't Life Grand, but if you listen to it, the singer that we had for that album was Rod Jackson. It's just a soulful, amazing, powerful voice. And the singer that Gilby had for his version, we always call it Slash 1 and Slash 2.0 or whatever. Yeah. So Slash's Snake Pit, the first album, had Eric Dover, who's another great singer and a great musician. I actually played with him in the Alice Cooper band as well. Great guitar player, great vocalist. He was on the first Slash Snake Pit. Then we got this. Then the second album was getting written and looking for musicians, and Johnny Graparik on the bass guitar, Matt Logg on the drums, who actually plays in AC/DC now. So and then Rod Jackson and Slash and myself. I mean, Slash was playing some of his best guitar playing since Appetite, in my opinion. So if you have a chance and you can see it, it comes up and on. It kind of fluctuates between Spotify. Sometimes it's up there, sometimes it's not. But if you have a chance to go check it out and maybe even find it in a record store, Slash's Snake Pit, Ain't Life Grand is a great album. Yeah. It's a great find.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that. And I was thinking, I had a buddy that was on the show that was connected, I think, in maybe LA Guns with Gilby, Adam Hamilton. Do you know Adam Hamilton at all?
Sounds familiar.
He was with LA Guns for like 8 years, and I didn't know if it's a small circle that you guys float in and out of there, right?
Well,
so
that is the rite of passage. You have to play. You have to play at least one gig in LA Guns to say you're an LA musician. And I actually have played one gig in LA Guns.
You checked the box then, didn't you?
I did.
Well, how does the playing styles differ between yourself, Tommy, and Nita? Like what are the different playing styles at a high level? Right. I mean, you think of three guitarists in a band, right?
Yeah. With this lineup, we do have Tommy Hendrickson on guitar, Nita Strauss on guitar, and myself on guitar. And it's pretty easy to divvy up the solos because we know what era of song plays to our
playing ability, right?
It just plays to our the facts that plays to our advantages, like plays to our strengths. That's the best way to say it. Sure. Because Nita's a great shredder. She can, and she shines at that. She can also play rock. Trust me, she's all around guitar player. And Alice likes to have lots of solos. That's another cool thing in the band. Okay. Alice Cooper loves guitar solos, but we know that the initial solo in sort of an 80s era or more of that guitar shredding era Alice Cooper song is going to probably fall in Nita's hands with the first solo, and then I'll get a second solo, or Tommy will get the solo. Then if it's more of a classic rock Alice Cooper song, or maybe one of the songs that we wrote together on the albums Eyes of Alice Cooper or Dirty Diamond, something like that, then maybe it'll fall into my sort of wheelhouse, and that's where my strengths are. And then Tommy and I really play well off each other. All those original Alice Cooper parts that had Michael Bruce and Glenn Buxton, Tommy and I are really good at sort of being the bookends on that. And then we also have that advantage to have the third guitar player that can provide like an overdub support guitar part. Yeah. So it works out great with the three guitar players for us. And we all have, the thing about it is we all know whose name is on the marquee, so we don't have to ever argue anything about that. And the guy whose name is on the marquee wants us to get up there front and center when it's our time to shine, and he wants us to get up there and perform at the highest level possible. He doesn't want you to sit back and sort of play for yourself and be introverted. He wants you to be front and center with the spotlight on you.
Well, I think that speaks a lot to his character, right? I mean, I don't know him, of course. I've never met him, but I mean, any lead singer, like I think you would agree with me, right? When a lead singer says, here, you take the front of the stage for a little bit, they must be, in touch with, I'm cool, go do your thing. I want you guys to shine too. So I really think that speaks a lot to his character and what kind of person he is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And he's secure with his fame. And that's the coolest thing about him is that, he wants you to get up and get as much recognition when you're soloing. When it comes time for him to come sing back and become Alice, just move out of the way, or you might get stabbed with a sword or something. Yeah. Something might happen because he is really lost in his character when he's on stage, which is a very cool thing to see and be a part of each and every night. You just have to be a little careful once in a while because there's been a few times that there's been some close to being stabbings on stage because Alice doesn't have a proximity of where the balloon that he's popping out with the sword is and where the bass player is. where Chuck, our bass player, or Tommy is or something. So
be on your toes is what you're saying, right?
Always.
Well, is he,
always.
Do you think he offers up the parts for you guys, like more solos, or you say that he loves solos? I think there's some musicians as we age, it's a time that the vocalist can relax or rest their voice. Is that what he does, or is it a combination, a hybrid that he does that, but he really is that kind of guy and wants you guys to get out there and shine? Like, can you speak to that a little?
I think he really enjoys people performing, and he likes the idea of a guitar duel in every song. But at the same time, Alice doesn't speak. Alice, the character, Alice Cooper, doesn't say a single word in between songs. Okay. The only time Alice talks is in the introductions of School's Out. So there is something to be said about having a little bit of a break with a double guitar solo. But I mean, look, it's usually our guitar solos aren't super long. Yeah. So the difference of 8 bars or 16 bars isn't that much.
You're not stretching the song out like to 5 minutes.
But it probably gives them a little bit. It gives them a little bit of a breath, and that's good, Yeah. So who knows? Maybe there's always the drum solo.
Of course, yeah, right. And then everybody gets a break. Well, share with the listeners what it's like to work with such a recognizable figure, and some might call the forefather of shock rock. Like, I mean, I don't think there's any. I don't care what genre of music you listen to. At some point in time, who Alice Cooper is, right?
Yeah,
and what is that like?
I don't know if he's a forefather. I think he's the godfather.
Yeah, there you go. Okay,
he's the godfather of shock rock. He just like, for me, inspiring to learn from. I still learn things from him every year. Each and every year, we do something that's kind of special. So being associated with him and as close as we are, like we play golf together. I'm his golf guy that we go out every morning. So I've gotten to learn a lot about how to play golf. And during those times that we're playing golf, I get to hear the stories, that sometimes don't make it into the interviews. Alice has done like 1,000 interviews, and you've probably heard 1,000 stories, but I get to hear some that never, ever make it to the interviews. And it's pretty cool. And again, just how you carry yourself, how with business, you kind of like do a lot of different things that's all centered around rock and roll, and what your foundation is, him being a touring rock and roll musician.
100%.
But that allows him to do so many other things, whether it's his charity work or whether it's his work with the golfing, and whether it's, he's doing the radio show, and whether he's doing all the different appearances. It all is supported by the fact that he's still out there doing it each and every year. And, we're, like I said, we're every single year that comes that we get to do it and go out on this level. It's just like, it really is like, you have to pinch yourself and say, man, this is what I wanted to do since I was a little kid. So, there ain't no complaining.
Sure. And you know what? On my show, it comes up a lot. because I have some old school 80s guys that have, 80s rock guys that have been on the show, and we talk about relevancy, right? When you're 60, 70 and you're still out 55, whatever the age, right? I mean, we're not 20-year-olds anymore at the end of the day, and you're still out there and you're selling out theaters and arenas and all of the things. Relevancy is everything, and I think that's a wonderful thing that all of you guys are still out there doing what you love to do at the end of the day.
Well, look, at the end of the day, I still would love to make a paycheck, and it's great work, when you can get it. Alice, if you take a big step back, doesn't have to do it. He's made his mark. He's got enough of a catalog that he could live, just like one of those guys like Paul McCartney. Doesn't have to go out and tour, but he does it because he loves it. Yeah. And Alice loves it as well. So we're happy to be along for the ride.
That's great, man. Well, when you're on tour with Alice, shifting gears a little bit, what does the rig look like at a high level for you? Do you travel light as a guitarist, or do you have tons of pedals and tons of guitars? Talk to let's shift for the gearheads just a little bit. What does rig, the Alice Cooper rig, look like for Ryan?
For me,
night after night.
For me, I like to take a big assortment of guitars because I like the guitars and the aesthetics of the guitars to reflect the songs that are in the set. So I do a lot of guitar changes throughout the set, and I do play them pretty hard, so they do go out. So it is important that we switch every, one or two songs. But I basically love like classic guitars and then mixing in with some newer brands that I've been working with lately. So I have a classic. I call it the Big Six of the Big Six of the Gibsons. The Les Paul is pretty much the creme de la creme, and then its little brother, the SG, and then its cousin, 335, the Gibson 335, and then I've got both the V and the Explorer out as well, and I think there's also a Firebird out there, so that would be the 6. I love it. I just love having those classic ones, and then I play Rock and Roll Relics, which is a newer brand as well, with the Revenge guitars, which is a really cool shape. So I'm just always trying to look for certain new guitars that have the classic sound of the old. So that's on the guitar end. On the amp end, I've always been sort of a Marshall guy, Marshall-esque, and if I get things that sound like that, I do have 2 rigs. One's an analog rig and one's more of a modeling rig. So the Kempers are something that, the whole band experiments with and has in their racks, but they're not really huge because our stage setup is so massive with set pieces. There's no room for speaker cabinets. There really isn't. Yeah. So we've all gotten used to in-ears. We're all kind of all tuned in. Our front of house guy too, without having all that sound coming off the stage, can really dial in the tones and dial in the separation. That's one thing that we get a lot for feedback, is that not feedback in a bad howling way, feedback in like from audience response, is that there's so much separation between our guitars. And then when we solo, our FOH front of house guy is able to like really crank the sounds, and Ron does a great job at that. So and as far as effects, I'm always picking up new little effects here and there. I just started a collaboration with a company called Citadel, and they have great phasers and great noise gate, to be honest with you. One of the best noise gates I've ever worked with at all. And they have a bunch of boosting pedals as well, sort of in an octaver pedal. We're actually working on a Ryan Roxie signature pedal that'll hopefully combine 2 of my most functional and favorite effects that I feel are important in a guitar rig. So stay tuned for that. Yeah. But Citadel has been a good collaborator as of late, and like I said, between Rock and Roll Relics and some other new guitar companies that are coming out, I'm always looking for something new that sounds old. Yeah. How about that?
That's super cool. I like that. And I guess going back to the guitars a little bit, and it is probably kind of like, saying, do you have a favorite kid? But is there a guitar that's a go-to for you? Like that is the Ryan Roxie go-to guitar. I know they all serve their own purpose. I get it. I'm a guitarist too. But is there one, like for me, the SJ200 is my guitar right now.
Right.
So I didn't know if there's one for you.
If you talk to my front of house guy, he actually prefers out of all my guitars the Rock and Roll Relics Roxie Revenge. I have one in hot pink and I have one in white. It's such a good sounding guitar. Really easy to play. If you ask me, as far as going old school and what my idols play and what, I was inspired to play from the beginning, there's two Les Pauls that I really love and that I own. I own a 72 Gold Top and a 79 Cherry Burst. And the Gold Top was I call it my first girlfriend. I bought it in Los Angeles when I first moved down there as a kid. I traded like probably 7 guitars for one guitar.
Of course.
That Guitars R Us, but I still have it to this day. It's all checked and cracked and relicked naturally, or not just from our own. It probably has so much blood, sweat, tears, and beer all soaked in that gives it its tone. And then the Cherry Burst, which was a huge influence for me, was Ace Frehley. I just think of him playing that Cherry Burst, and I finally was able to find one. I found the ultimate American guitar of all places in Moscow, Russia, and so I had to buy it. And so those two, I just love a Les Paul as well, and I'm still young enough in a sense where it doesn't hurt my back too much. Yeah. And these actually happen to be, more on the lighter side. So
sure.
Between the Rock and Roll Relics and the Gibsons, I'm covered.
That's cool, man. Well, the Cherry, when you were saying it, kind of reminded you of Ace Frehley. And when you said a 72 Gold Top, the first person you kind of think of there is Slash, right? I mean, Slash, his persona is synonymous with that Gold Top Les Paul, right? Is that around the same year model as yours, or do you even have it?
I'm not sure. I mean, Slash's appetite, for destruction wasn't even a Gibson. Okay. It was actually it was a great knockoff, but that actual first one was actually built by someone else. Okay, and interesting. And it sounds great, And that was, I have basically a nice no burst type of Les Paul like that as well. But again, the different shapes that Gibson has put out, because they're so classic, just reminds me of different eras. So when we're playing, whether it's Poison or Feed My Frankenstein or one of the more 80s types of Alice Cooper songs, I'll usually go for either the Explorer or the Fine V for one of those. And drop D tuning, if we go down to Brutal Planet or something, you can easily do that with an Explorer type shape and stuff. So again, a lot of times the shape dictates the song. Yeah. And of course the original Alice Cooper band, they both played SGs. So it looks pretty cool when Tommy and I both play Gibson SGs side by side, because it harkens back to the originals.
Paying homage. That's right.
Well, always paying homage.
That's right. Do you have a love for the acoustic guitar? I'm sure you have love for all guitars, but do you find yourself sitting around and playing the acoustic guitar? Are you that guy, or not ever?
I found myself as of late, I was talking earlier about, learning how to play with the right hand a lot better with the finger picking style stuff. Acoustics have always been my go-to in songwriting. If you can write the idea on an acoustic and then translate it over to an electric, I think you got yourself, a good song.
Absolutely.
And for me, I've got two of the best acoustics now. Always wanted a Martin, and I finally got a Martin just in the last couple of years. Okay. So, and then my Gibson Hummingbird is pretty much the main songwriting guitar that I've had, and the main acoustic guitar that I have when I do troubadour gigs. Because during the times that we're not on tour with Alice, I try to do gigs on my own, and a lot of times it's just you and an acoustic guitar. And if you can translate your music like that, then that's great. And let's hope you have a good sounding acoustic, and that Hummingbird's been the go-to always.
Yep. And that's a great segue, Ryan. You know, you currently have a fairly new solo song out that came out, I guess, at the top of the year. Talk to the listeners about the song Fight Another Day.
Cool. Yeah, well, Fight Another Day is the newest. I'd say I put 2 songs out lately. One was called Better Than You, and that sort of dovetails in with this new song called Fight Another Day. They're both a little bit of like an indie rock vibe, but they also have more of a classic rock. Fight Another Day has this classic, I don't know, you could say a Stonesy type of Stones meets T-Rex. Our video producer that put together the video made an 8-bit video game style video for it. So like whether it's Mario Brothers or Donkey Kong, that sort of thing, made myself into an avatar, which is really cool. And the object of the game in the video is for me to make it up on stage without getting run over by the security guards, which we call the Big Ragu security guards. So we intersplice that with live footage from the musicians that helped out on this song. And like I said, it became a very international type of thing with putting together Fight Another Day. We had myself recording the vocals and the guitars down in South Africa. We had the drummer Trent Teakin, really great drummer, recording the drums in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We had Keith Weir from Black Eyed Sons playing the keyboards from London, I believe, or some, in the UK area. We had Bridget West, who guest vocaled on it. She played in a band back a few years ago called the New York Loose. Great vocalist. I needed some sort of that Stonesy nice background vocals. Sure. She guested on that, sent her tracks all the way up to Canada. Everybody sent their tracks to Canada. It was mixed and by Robbie Miller, who did a great job. Matt Marzola mastered it, and now it's out there. It's out on Spotify. It's out on all the streaming platforms. And if you really want to do me a favor, go check it out on YouTube, and hopefully you'll dig the video as well. But all those links to hear the new song Fight Another Day are on ryanroxie.com.
Yeah, and that can also on the official YouTube site, Ryan Roxie.
Absolutely.
So check it out there. What inspired the song, Ryan? Where did the idea come from?
With Fight Another Day, I have this thing called the 3 Ps. This is sort of advice I give out: practice, persistence, and patience. Those are really important to get across to people, because they're just 3 easy things to remember, but they'll help you with whatever goal you have set for yourself. And the thing with Fight Another Day is, like, as long as you do something towards that goal, you can always just take a rest, celebrate the win of the day, and live to fight another day. Right. And you'll be able to kick that door down maybe the next day. But that's where it kind of came in.
Oh, that's great advice. And it's like the idea of taking a boulder. It's hard to move a boulder, but if you break that boulder down into rocks and then ultimately into grains of sand, it's easier to learn. There you go. Right? So kind of the same mindset. Well, you have solo music, man, that dates back to 2018 on Spotify, I believe. And
it's even before that.
Probably yeah. So I wanted to ask you, how much time do you spend writing material for yourself versus that of doing Alice stuff, right? Like learning new songs or perfecting things. Like how much time is Ryan Roxie time for your solo stuff?
I don't really have any sort of set, like, okay, now I have to work on this. With whatever is inspiring me at the moment, that's when I'll put the time into. And sometimes it's maybe not the best use of time, but I'll spend I'll spend like 3 or 4 hours learning the acoustic beginning to Heart Crazy on You, that beautiful, Nancy Wilson acoustic, intro. where I should, maybe I should have actually been working on my own songs, but that inspired me at that point. I found the best thing to always have is have your phone, your voice memos on, because you never know when that song idea is going to come around. And you never know when you're going to get inspired by whether it's a lyric, a melody, or maybe even a guitar riff. There's been many times where I've hummed a guitar riff into the phone and then went back home and played it and transposed it and actually got a song out of it.
Sure. Well, you gave me a visual there. I love Nancy Wilson. I envision Nancy Wilson playing that opening on that Martin guitar, and then the leg to go into the It never leaves the brain, man. It's kind of ingrained in there. Well, outside of solo music, what other projects do you have going on that you'd like to talk about that would be of interest to my listeners at Backstage Pass Radio, right?
Well, if anybody wants to find out more about me, I have a few things going on. All the links and stuff are at ryanroxie.com. But I have a podcast called the In the Trenches podcast, which I've been able to interview a bunch of people, a bunch of musicians, a bunch of comedians, personalities, some philosophers, actually, just some intellectuals. And so go check that out. We've had guests all the way from the guitarist from Elton John to Jordan Peterson to Doug Stanhope, who's one of my favorite stand-up comedians of all time. So I've been able to interview a lot of people that inspired me. A lot of my own favorite guitar players. For one of them is Steve Stevens from the Billy Idol Band. Had a really good talk with him. And so I think the podcast is something, if you want to check out, is cool. If you're thinking about learning guitar yourself, I also have a guitar system called the System 12 Guitar Method. Okay. And it's basically a 12-lesson course where you learn in 12 lessons all the basic fundamentals of playing guitar. I want to teach it to you the right way, give you all my shortcuts before you go down that YouTube rabbit hole, because at least you'll have a little bit of knowledge. What happens with a lot of people that want to learn how to play guitar is that they try to take a little bit more, they bite off a little bit more than they can chew, and then they end up getting frustrated by it. And I don't want you to get frustrated by it because, again, I told you there's only 12 notes in Western music. So 7 whole notes with their sharps and flats. If you can remember that and you can memorize that and where they are, not even on all the 6 strings, if you can just do it on the 6th string and the 5th string, the names of each one, I can teach you how to play power chords. Then once I teach you how to play power chords, I can teach you how to play any song that's ever been written. So I think, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think you would agree with me, Ryan, that, guitar playing is going to be a journey for those listening to this podcast. You're not going to learn it overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think most players get to that point where the fingers start to blister and they check out, right? And that's like like Steve Miller said years ago, you got to go through hell before you get to heaven, right? And I think that you concur with that as a guitar player. Like, you got to put in the work. There's no shortcuts to becoming a good or a great player, and you just have to be prepared to go on that journey. And it's not an overnight journey, right? And it's not discouraging.
But break it up.
Yep.
Yeah, but again, break it up, because you don't have to. I'm not saying that you have to practice till your fingers bleed. You really don't. You can put in just a finite amount of time each and every day. The important thing is that you put that time in each and every day. Put that 15 to 20 minutes a day into learning something new, whether it's a new riff, maybe a new chord, maybe some ear training. And the collective over time is going to be, how to play music.
100%. When did you spin up in the trenches? How long has it been out there in the?
We started in the dark times during COVID, and we were able to do easily pack a bunch of shows in at a short amount of time. But we've been doing it sporadically as the touring schedule got busier and busier. We not able to do as many episodes as I'd like, but we're still trying to get people each and every few months to tell their story, and for people that I'm interested in that I think would be interesting to the people that follow me. Go check it out. I mean, like I said, we're well into like 150 episodes. There's going to be someone there that a lot of people, more than just someone, but a lot of people hopefully that inspire you and tell some great stories.
Well, the interesting thing there is that you and I are about 150, 160 deep, both of us. I started mine up in 21, and it's heard in like 143 countries now. And I love it. It's almost as enjoyable as playing live shows. And I cut the live shows way back just so I could, put more into the podcast. And I wanted to ask you, is podcasting enjoyable to you? Or is it kind of like this thing you just felt like you needed to do? Like, do you really?
I won't do it. Yeah, because it's certainly not a huge money maker. It's you're doing it to like inspire, and you're doing it because you're interested yourself. So if I ever get to the point where it's not fun to do, I probably won't do it. And but I do like talking to the people because every single person has something that enlightens you. And that goes not just with people that you interview in podcasts and stories. It goes with every single player that you ever play with. You can learn something from someone that seemingly has way less experience than you. They're going to look at the guitar, they're going to look at the playing, they're going to look at something about your instrument that you don't look at the same way at, and will hopefully open a door, maybe spark an idea. So always keep your eyes and your ears open for new inspiration.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. And where can the listeners find the podcast? I'm assuming it's all on all of the major streams, right? iHeartRadio, YouTube.
Yeah, it's on Apple Podcasts as well, Spotify. But the place to go see everything is RyanRoxie.com. Okay. Yeah, because we have the podcast there. We have our System 12 there. If you want to go really inside the Ryan Roxie sort of rabbit hole, if you will, okay. You can become an all accessor, and that's where I have a private Instagram page, and I post up a bunch of different content that I don't put on my private because it's just more day to day. If you really want to know what happens day to day in my tour schedule, my tour cycle, become an all accessor. Yeah. And I can, I'll show you what it's like on the tour bus, what it's like in the dressing room, what it's like at sound check, what it's like in the, not all the hotel rooms are backstage, after show, pre-show, post-show. I do live streams, all that's sort of in our own little circular group. And we're not a huge group. That's what makes it seem like I get to know everybody that's an all accessor. And then, the public, they can always be part of that as well. But if you want to go a little bit more hardcore into the touring world and the tour life of Ryan Roxie, become an all accessor. Again, all that's on my website.
Awesome. So you got the Instagram, you're out there on Facebook, all of the major platforms. And
I think I even have a MySpace.
Okay. No, now you're dating yourself a little bit, but
I'm pretty sure I don't have a MySpace, but I'll bet it's somewhere. I'll bet you there's an archive version somewhere.
Yeah, I can tell you that I had one. I don't know if it's still out in the ether somewhere, but I had one myself back in the day, right? Well, Ryan, listen, man, this has been super cool. I really appreciate you spending the time with me this afternoon. I know we've had a lot of back and forth, and thanks for sticking with me. And the scheduling always seems to be the hardest part for some reason. But I appreciate you being here. Yeah, man. And you guys break a leg, and I wish you nothing but the best in the years to come, and out on the road on this couple of tours that you're doing with Alice, and then the Chris Angel shows. We'll be on the lookout for that stuff.
Thanks for carrying the torch of rock and roll and spreading the Roxie word. I really do appreciate that.
A lot of people said, why did you even start the podcast? And I said, you know what? It was never for me. It was never for, I had money. Money never crossed my mind. It was for two reasons. Because I'm a rock and roll junkie. I love the backstories, the stories of the road, the liner notes, all of the things. And it was a platform to being a local musician here in Houston, just a platform to give to my peers and my fellow musicians to talk about their music and what they're doing and what they have coming out. And it's spun into having, world-renowned musicians like yourself on the show. And that's really it. I mean, it was for the love of music at the end of the day, right? And I think it comes across sincere when a musician is talking to another musician, right? We get it.
Absolutely.
I'm not doing it for a living per se, but I go out and I'm a professional musician. I get paid to play music, but I don't take it to that level. I have the 9-to-5 job that I go to every day, right? But it's for the love of the music at the end of the day.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Randy, you did this podcast for moments like this.
That's it, man. That's exactly it. Well, again, thanks for being here. I ask the listeners to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast on Facebook at Backstage Pass Radio Podcast, on Instagram at Backstage Pass Radio, and on the website at BackstagePassRadio.com. You guys remember to take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you right back here on the next episode of Backstage Pass Radio.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Backstage Pass Radio. Backstage Pass Radio. We hope you enjoyed this episode and gained some new insights into the world of music. Backstage Pass Radio is heard in over 80 countries, and the streams continue to grow each week. If you loved what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave reviews on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us bring you even more amazing content. So join us next time for another deep dive into the stories and sounds that shape our musical landscape. Until then, keep listening, keep exploring, and keep the passion of music alive.